Howdy of you delicious people, I'm here today to review Midsommar. So, for this review, I think I'm going to have to go on and review this differently than I've possibly ever done a review before. And that probably tells you something. So, the first thing that I'm going to go on and say is, one, didn't know that this movie was, spelled differently. So, while I was kind of having to search through it, I was like, wait a minute, why can't I find this movie? And I'm like, oh, it's spelled differently. Oh, that makes sense. And then I was like, oh, okay, here's how it's actually spelled. Oh, okay, oh, cool. Then let's go on and talk about the positives of this movie. I like the way that this movie is shot. There's some interesting visuals going on here. Simply while they're driving the car, how the lens kind of like flips and does that kind of like obscure kind of visual. And also right after that, they go on and they walk their way into this really interesting like tree framed visual. And I thought that was also really cool. And I think there are points where, like, throughout this movie, there's just interesting shots throughout this film. Plus, also, this movie has interesting visuals, unique and interesting visuals. So I liked that. I like showing technically some culture of this movie. That was really interesting. And then I have to go on and say that Danny easily is the most interesting character within this movie, because she's the only interesting character in this movie. Everyone else is who they are. But man, that Danny, though. So, now that I've said that, now let's go on and say how I feel about this movie. I feel like I've seen a better version of this film if you go on and watch the Nicolas Cage movie, The Wicker Man, or you go on and watch like any tourist movie that eventually ends badly, like Hostel. Really, after going and watching Hostel, like anything that seems anywhere similar to that, I'm like, oh, okay, like, all right, like, so give me the deepest, darkest, horrific scene that you can give me, and that still won't be anywhere close to Hostel. So good luck. Good luck, Midsommar. Good attempt. There is some interesting things that they do with certain characters in this film, and so I can praise that for that. But then I can also turn around and say that this movie is far too long. Far too long. How we can go on and have so many people like standing for a long time and then sitting. We have the singing and the humming and the this and the that consistently throughout this film. It reminded me of the show Archive 81, where we just have a number of people that are like, and that happens a lot in that show. So I was like, oh my god, this is Archive 81. I'm freaking out. It's Archive 81. I'm getting flashbacks of it. Because basically, there are also times when people are going at it in Archive 81. So, like, we have like an interesting going at it scene in this film. But I wasn't really like shocked by anything of this film. But that's because I've seen too much. So yeah, like, for some people, they may have gotten grossed out by this film, or they might have been like, oh my god. Because I think when I went on and watched reactions of this movie, I think there was a lot of people that were like, oh my god. And I was like, nah, like, that's just Tuesday to me. Or that's just whatever day of the week this is, for whenever you're watching it. So yeah, so grading for this film, I would have to go on and say that this movie's bad, but like there's interesting slivers of things that I liked about it, but I would never go on and watch this movie again unless there's absolutely a really good reason to. Like if like there was this like, hey, like if you are to get this one wish, all you have to do is watch Midsommar again, then I'd be like, okay, like you twisted my arm. But anyways, so with that said, this movie's bad. I wouldn't recommend it. I would just say watch The Wicker Man, and you'll be more uh, captivated by a film instead of almost falling asleep during it. Because this movie is just watching paint dry. It just is. There's just not enough there. And again, see Hostel instead. You're just like, oh my god, this movie's crazy. And then you'll just be more thrilled by that film. So, with that said, let's just go teeing it up. What is this movie exactly about? So, trying to like slim down, because even when we get into spoilers, I'm going to be slimming down this movie a lot. Because I can't understand why it's the time that it is. It makes no justifiable sense. So, teeing it up, we of course have Danny, who is going through a mourning process and is to be having a shoulder to cry on consistently, for Christian to be consistently with this girl crying all the time. So Christian's friends are starting to go to Christian and be like, man, like this girl, like she's a bit much. Like you could probably go on and eventually find a really nice girl who will easily give it up. And Christian's like, no, like I think I'm gonna stay with Danny. But then, like the further and further that Christian and Danny are finally going to go off to Sweden together, as it seems that Christian was going to go off to Sweden, but then Danny was like, well, I don't know if you should go, because how many things could just happen? Millions? And so, Christian is like, well, how about I just invite you, because now that you, like, don't want me to go, let's invite you to come with me. And then it becomes a whole thing of just like, well, like this girl's like, I don't know if I wanna. And so this girl eventually goes, gets pushed into all the stuff that all the other guys are doing. And so we have a guy named Pele, I believe that's how it's pronounced, or probably his name is Pell, Pelle, Pele. Anyways, so Pele. I'm gonna pronounce it that way consistently, and it's probably gonna be incorrect. So just so you know. So this guy, of course, is to have been from Sweden, speaks the language. They're gonna go with. They're gonna go off to this location where this guy is basically taking these people to his uncle. It's like these guys are families of his. Pele has them like meet this guy's sister and all these people. Maya, who's effing creepy-ish. You, Maya. You. What an awful person Maya is. Or Maja. Maja, Maja. It sounds like they say Maya throughout this movie, but I believe it might be Maja. You have a Maja, Vaja, and Maja. Anyways, so we have some interesting visuals in this movie, some ruins, uh, some interesting books, and so on and so forth. And here's the one thing about a tourist movie. If anybody's to ever go on and offer you drugs, never take it in your life. Because that drug will all of a sudden, like, you're thinking, oh yeah, like, I think I'm gonna have fun, and then you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be having fun. You're gonna be having pass out fun. That's what you're gonna be having. And somebody's gonna steal your wallet, and you're gonna end up in Timbuk effing 2 somewhere. So yeah. So with that said, when somebody gives you drugs, never take them. So with that said, we push to have us see these people's customs, and eventually these customs get very strange, to the point of us realizing that there is a certain age gap of things. You can't be this high to ride the ride, so to speak. So we, all of a sudden, the more and more these people are to do drugs, the more and more that they are to be positioned and put to have certain roles within these ceremonies. And we have Christian, who is going to be doing some separate thing from Danny, that is to also have Danny just be mortified. Let's just say in very vague like ways, but let's just go on it and also into spoilers, because this movie is what a film, and I'm fairly tired. So that's it. Let's go on into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we get to spoil this movie. So this spoiler version is to be heavily condensed down, because really it should be. So with that said, in the very beginning of this film, we have Danny that is to be given these emails from her sister, and they're very weird. Danny is to be fearful of these emails that she's getting from her sister. And so Danny calls Christian and is to let Christian know about these emails, because Danny's crying. She cries through 80% of this movie, maybe 90, maybe the full 100. I'm not quite sure. I'm not always attentive of Danny's needs, sadly, and I wish I could have been. So, of seeing her face. Is she crying? I'm not 100% sure. So, it's just a part of that character. So, Danny calls Christian and is to mention that she's getting these emails, and Danny's afraid and she's in tears, and Christian's like, well, what do you want me to do? And Danny's like, I don't know, I just wanted to like tell you that these emails exist, kind of thing. And Christian's like, well, okay. Like, so goodbye, love you. So Danny's still in tears, and so Christian is to be with his friends at this like restaurant. It seems bar, maybe more like a restaurant. So Christian's friends are just like, come on, man, like this girl is to like be very abusive with the way that she is to consistently like need you. Like, Christian, you need to go on and find another woman out there that isn't as much of a problem, so to speak, and like get laid. Just get laid. And Christian is like, no, I think I'm fine. Because I guess Christian is just to be, metaphorically speaking, like beating women off with a stick because they're all looking at him like, I want me some of that. And Christian is just like, no, like I want to stick with Danny because he actually values a relationship. Because that's actually the smart move. Because when you go on and you have like a brief moment with a woman that will eventually lead nowhere, then you're stuck by yourself. You're stuck by yourself, and then you may never go on and get any relationship ever again. And so why wouldn't you go on and just be like, no, like I want a relationship? That sounds great. So with that said, Christian is again getting another call from Danny. I wonder what this could be about. I think she just bought some froyo online, and she's asking Danny what his favorite flavor is. No, Danny is to again call Christian because she is to hear some horrible news. Danny is to find out that her sister had taken her own life and had taken her parents' lives with her in that way of things. So I guess by putting like a like the gas line in her mouth and taping it, so Christian is to get the call from Danny, and so Christian is now comforting Danny as she is yell crying, which I'm like, okay, like I've never like seen somebody like yell cry before. I'm a quiet crier. Anyways, so no, I'm not. Anyways, so I'm making jokes about this, but like I like Danny's character, cause like with all of what she's dealing with in this movie, I just really like her. And also she's like on medications. We see her take that. So Christian is to eventually mention to Danny that he's going to Sweden with the rest of the guys to work on their thesis. And so Christian is to mention this to Danny, and Danny's like, well, I don't think you should go. I think I'm paranoid about this. No, I don't think you should go. You might die. Might happen. We might break up. We gotta keep this relationship together. Together. And Christian is just like, well, like I guess like here's the surprise. You're coming with me. What a bullshit lie. He was like, I wanted to go on my own, but now I have to invite Danny along with me. Because they kind of mentioned how, like, Danny and Christian mentioned how, like, Danny is trying to get away from Danny, and, like, Danny is, like, is basically oblivious to it. And so, like, now really be what it is. Really say what is really going on here. So Christian invites Danny, and so then Christian is to tell the rest of his friends, it's like, well, hey, like, I invited her, like, this was the plan all along, guys, confirm this to me. And because Danny is gonna say that she's gonna go, but she's probably not gonna go. I'm like, wouldn't have Danny like actually have gone on and like put a like funeral together for her family. Like, wouldn't she be sadly busy with that? Uh, yeah, maybe there's like other family that is taking on that, but still. And also, like, this is right around Danny's birthday, also. And so, man, that's got to sting. Every time you're going to think of your birthday, you're also going to be thinking about your freaking dead family. Man, I can just imagine what Bruce Wayne feels like every day. My parents. Anyways. Like, I second guess the humor of this, but this movie is what it is. So with that said, we have Danny go and meet with Christian's friends, and they're like, "Hey, yeah, like you're going to Sweden, right? Yeah, it's gonna be great. Like we're gonna have so much planned, kind of thing." So we have, of course, Pelle or Pell, Pelle. Not quite sure or remembering how exactly that's pronounced in the movie. So we have. I'm just gonna keep calling him Pell, and people can consistently tell me how it's actually said, and then I'll be like, great, cool, because I know every once in a while that happens. So it's better than probably calling him Pele, because that probably doesn't sound right. So Pell is to tell Danny, it's like, yeah, like it's great that you're coming. Like I was very excited that you were gonna come. Compared to everyone else, it could not give two rips. So Danny's like, oh wow, that's nice. Also, we have Pell, who is to remember that it's Danny's birthday, and Christian completely forgets. He ends up giving her a cake after the fact, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I remembered it's your birthday. I just wanted to surprise you." No, like, there were too many drugs being put into people's systems to really care. Sadly enough, uh, drugs meaning drugs that are giving you certain trips, so to speak. But anyways, so now we drive off to Sweden, it seems, and so they're all starting to talk about their theses, and so it seems that Josh is going to do his thesis on uh, this place here, and Christian is going on and saying that he's going to do something with Scandinavian things, and Josh is looking at Christian is like, sure you are. Sure you are. I'm sure you will. Mm-hmm. He's freaking lying to me. He's telling me something I want to hear. But then all of a sudden, he's just going to piggyback off of what I'm doing. And then he's going to want to do it. And then I shouldn't. And so, anyways, they get out of the car. They walk their way to this, like I want to call it like a compound. But like there's very little actual like homes and stuff around this area. There of course to be this like yellow triangle or yellow pyramid looking small temple looking thing, which no one should really go into, and that's odd. So but let's go on. So first thing that these people end up doing is they give these people mushrooms and say, yeah, like go on and take the mushrooms. And it's kind of funny because I've heard a bunch of other YouTubers and stuff like take drugs and mushrooms and all kinds of stuff. And like the first time around, like they took too much because they didn't like feel that it was at all effective. And then they're like, whoa. I took too much, obviously. My mistake. So, yeah. So, we have Danny who is hesitant about taking these mushrooms. because Danny will be hesitant about taking everything because she's smarter than everyone else is. But Danny gets peer pressured because everyone else is like, well, hey, I want to get high, and I want to get high as well as everyone else is at the same time. Because that's what Mark says. The future Adam Warlock for you, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe, I don't know. Somebody could have said that, and then eventually it never comes true. So, let me pause here for a second. Alright. So, we are to be here in this Swedish area, and they at some points are talking Swedish. There seems to be some points where there's parts of this movie that is to be subtitled, but not everything. So that's kind of annoying. Because I'm like, wait a minute, like you can subtitle a certain portion of this film, but not every Swedish word that is spoken. What's the difference? So we go on into this film, and so what ends up happening is that the Swedish, the people that are to be in this area are to go on and be at the place where their food is, and they stand for a long time, and then they finally all decide like, okay, like let's finally sit. And so it seems that there is to be a girl named Maya or Maja, who seems to be very interested in Christian, to the point where it seems that she is somehow like saying like, this is gonna be my guy, I've chosen this guy. Let me pause here again. Alright, sorry. So we have people singing and humming and all of this stuff, which is really annoying. So come to find out, all the guys are to try to learn as much as possible from Pelle as much as they can about the culture here. And so we come to find out that there's a certain age range for certain things. So it seems that there is a whole entire house that is specifically reserved for certain people who reach 18 to 36, I think. And so they end up kind of getting placed into this room. And then the further ages that they go, it seems that there is to be some like mentor role and this and that kind of role. And once you get to the age of 76, well, you'll find out what happens. So again, these characters are to be given all kinds of things that are just supposed to enlighten them or basically drug them consistently. So we have at one point where Christian is to be given this certain kind of food, and he realizes that there is a hair in it. And they're like, oh my god, there's a hair in your food. Thinking that it's some kind of pube. Because we go on in one part of this movie in order to see these kind of sheets with a number of these images of a girl going through her time of the month, and her kind of trimming herself. And so we go on and have Christian, who's to pull this hair out of his mouth. It's like, what is this? And then it's to look at this girl like, okay, there's something wrong here. So now we have to showcase what happens to 74-year-olds. And so come to find out, these people are to go on and take these drinks and then go onto the sledge and jump off, falling down, hoping that their fall is going to kill them. And that sometimes does not happen. Sometimes a leg just gets broken. So they all of a sudden are to take these massive kind of like almost sledgehammer like things and are cracking these people's skulls open. And I'm like, okay, all right, like we could kind of see this in any horror movie that we've ever seen in our lives at some point. So now we have a number of people that are all like turned off by what's going on here, and we have Connie and Simon, who are come to find out to be engaged, because it seems that Connie was interested in some other guy, and they had this kind of brief moment where they possibly dated, but then both Connie and Simon were to find one another and got are to get engaged. So we have, of course, Christian is to change his mind about this whole thesis paper after this whole head cracking thing happens. And Christian is to want to stay here where it seems that some other people are wanting to leave. And Christian's like, no, I think there's something interesting here. So Christian then tells Josh that he is to go on and do his thesis. And Josh is like, seriously? Like, man, like you have piggybacked off of me so much so that like this guy didn't know what anything was. Like he didn't really care about school as much as Josh did, and so this guy just wants to continue to go on and just piggyback off of this guy. And so to the point of Josh just being so upset about this. So Josh just wants to go on and get more unique things than Christian is doing. And so Josh is going on and looking at certain ruins, runes, desperately trying to get a gander at this book that these people are to read. And Josh is to ask Pell if he can take a look at that book. And Pell is telling Josh, it's like, no, like it's not allowed. So Josh sneaks in late at night to try to get a gander at this book, and he ends up getting sludged in the head for it and killed. And nobody really cares about this guy ever showing up throughout the rest of this film. So after Connie and Simon are to be outraged about what they are to see, we eventually have Connie and Simon separate from one another. And come to find out, we see later that Simon is to creatively have his lungs being pulled out of his body, and he is to kind of look like a butterfly. Really having Christian finding him later and seeing like flowers in his eyes and a number of goofy things that look fairly unusual. Like this guy's back is to be opened up. You're seeing skin. And so on and so forth. So, and Connie has been told by one of the people that Simon was to leave on this truck that didn't have enough room for Connie to fit in there. And Connie's like, well, I could have just sat in my boyfriend's lap. Like, this guy just left me, and I'm furious. And so Connie just leaves, and you never see her again through the rest of the film. So Danny is to also want to go on and leave with Christian, and Christian doesn't want to leave. And that's when they have this relationship conflict between the two of them, where Danny is to go on and mention that, like, Danny just wants to figure out a way to, like, get away from Danny, and Danny's naive about it. And so Christian and Danny are to eventually kiss and make up after them kind of almost having this breakup moment. So now we just have to start getting rid of other people. So Mark, when he arrives here, is to see that a woman is to be consistently interested in him, to where Mark is to ask Pell about, like, well, hey, like, what did that girl just say? Like, did she say anything else? Because this girl keeps looking at Mark. towards the end of the film, we have this girl who takes Mark to this location, and we again never see him again. So, immediately telling us that this guy just gets killed. So, now, after all of the dancing that they are to go on and do, to almost make this kind of a like a Congo line of dancing where everybody's kind of being grabbed and kind of kind of going in this kind of certain dance like way. We've had a number of times where people are to be eating meals on the ground with these kind of mats on the ground, and they all eat in a R-like shape, or a number of other just kind of interesting shapes. So I guess all of the symbols are to probably mean something, of whatever of which is to probably be on a number of runes or a number of just symbols and stuff. So now, beyond the whole head cracking thing, let's go on and really get into this. So now they have to go on and find the May Queen. So they are going on and having Danny being involved in this this dance like thing, and there is a game that is to be put together where eventually people have to be kind of tossed out of this game. And so it seems that Danny is going to be in the final 8, and then they continue to do this dance, they continue to do this, and so all of a sudden, Danny is to win the May Queen. And so she ends up getting this flower upon her head, this kind of outfit that we see her, of course, doing, as Danny is to now get separated from Christian, for Christian to go on and have him talk to some woman, where this woman tells Christian that, like, hey, like, this girl named Maya is to choose you. She chose you even before you got here, because Pell was to show a picture of you, and she chose you. So Christian is like, well, what does that mean? Like, to marry this girl? And this woman is like, no. She wants to just go on and mate with you. So Christian is to just go on and be like, well, like, could I participate with the festivities without actually, like, participating in it? Like, meaning, like, I think Christian wants to just kind of see what all she's saying before he to really make a decision. But it seems that something's going to make a decision for him, and that, of course, is to be called drugs through liquid form. So Danny is eventually to be put in this all, like, flowered attire, it seems, to the point of when she tries to get away from these people, it seems that she has a tough time moving because of all these flowers being all over her. And we consistently see Danny throughout this movie who is to seem to have, like, her hand, like, starting to grow grass, or her feet starting to grow grass, as these weird goofy visuals are to be done with Danny, to the point where we start to see Danny have this kind of this flower like chest, and then eventually, the longer and longer we see this movie, it seems that Danny is to be growing more and more flowers throughout her whole entire body, which kind of look more like a dress at the end of all this. So Christian is to go on and figure out that he is to be forced to go on and meet with Maja to basically just impregnate her. But Christian is so drugged and so basically, like, pushed to a certain area to go on and do this deed that he really isn't to be controlled to do what he's doing. Like, he's not in control of what he's doing here. So Christian then goes on and is to see a number of women around Maja who don't have clothes on, and Maja is getting prepared to welcome Christian with her legs. So Christian is to go on and be on top of this girl, and all of a sudden we start having certain women that are getting closer to Maja. The women are all to start to surround these two more, and we even have one point where a woman is to be pushing onto Christian's butt, trying to get him to have this possibly happen sooner. So Danny is to make her way back to be hearing this sounds coming from this certain room, and so Danny's like, well, hey, what's over there? And this woman is telling Danny, it's like, yeah, you don't want to go in there. So Danny's like, well, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to see what this is. So Danny is to look into this keyhole of this door to realize that Christian is cheating on her. So Danny, of course, is to become ill. She is to vomit, and then she is to go into a certain location and need the comfort of a number of other women, as she, of course, is crying, and they're all crying, and she's yelling, and they're all yelling, and all these girls are all doing exactly what she's doing. So now it comes down to, after Christian is to have given Maja what she needs, and Maja is to feel the baby growing within her, Christian is to then be so drugged that it seems that he's paralyzed, and they had to like open his eyes to be able to tell him, it's like, well, yeah, you're not going to be able to speak, you're not going to be able to do anything, but you're going to just have your eyes be open for this whole ceremony. So both Danny and Christian like are seemingly immobile at this point, and so the people are going on and telling both Danny and Christian what is next, to have a number of people get sacrificed for the cause, because a number of people have already been sacrificed, but there's going to be some more on the way. So we have a bear that ends up getting dissected, and then Christian is to go on and be put inside this bear skin, and he gets placed into this barn, or this house, to have him be sacrificed, burned alive, with these two other guys that are to volunteer to burn alive also. So while that's going on, and while the carnage of that is happening, we have, of course, where Danny is to try to make a run for it. And try to make a run for it is really like not making a sense way to say this, because Danny is to just kind of try to just kind of hobble her way, with her like basically having like a garden upon her body. So eventually, like, the people are to get what they want, to just go on and eventually like start the next ceremony, and like really they get everything that they need here, so they're gonna go on like, okay, like evidently the ceremony is to happen every 90 years, so like this is like the unique case of them going on and sacrificing these people. So with that said, uh, maybe not everything was perfectly said by, especially by the end here, or overall, just because I really rushed through this bad boy. Uh, but yeah, like that is the meat and potatoes of this review. Um, because yeah, like that's all that I really wanted to absolutely go into. Uh, we also had a moment where we had a woman who was to say what all everyone was to do was to kind of drink this drink, and then she realized, oh, like we have English people in this audience also, so she starts speaking in English. So it's like, oh, like that's good that like they like trying to like remember like, oh yeah, like we should also do like the English version also. There was also a moment where Mark was to pee on this tree, this sacred tree, and Pell was to pull him aside of like, oh my god, you peed on the sacred tree, and Mark's like, how was I supposed to know? Like I thought it was just a tree. So we had this guy who I believe was named like Ulf or something. He was like crying heavily. He's like, oh my god, this guy destroyed this tree. It's the tree that's already dead. He destroyed it again. So Pell's sister is to tell Mark that it's like, you know what, it's okay. He didn't know any better. And so she walks off. So really, Pell is going to like convince people in the town that it's okay. Maybe they're just gonna have to sacrifice more because of that. But so, anyways, yeah, that covers a bulk of this movie. Just like it is what it is with this review. Um, but I also just kind of want to get out of here. We also had the moment where Danny was to like when she was to take drugs, she realized she was gonna have a like really bad trip, and so she starts seeing like images of her family and that they're dead, and so like that kind of freaked her out, probably making her not want to go on and take any single ever drug again. But it seems that she goes on and continues to do so throughout this movie because everything is drugged. So, because this place is basically a cult. Uh, so so with that said, yeah, we have people like start to question people are missing, but they don't really much do any follow up, which kind of is like okay, like so they're not like furious that this person is missing. Like I guess they just have to write it off as like, oh, maybe they just like went off on their own, or maybe they just got ticked off because of some dialogue that I had said before. So with that said, hopefully that covers this movie in a very roundabout way. Besides the perfect ending of it all, that wasn't really all that perfect. So that's it. I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. All right. Finishing up, because I just remembered something. We we see Danny, who turns to look at that place that, of course, Christian was in, be burning in flames, and so Danny turns and she smiles and stops dead at her tracks. And the thing that we see to end this movie is that there's a number of these kind of scarecrowish looking people that are all to make their way. It looks like someone had gone on and been skinned and then placed into this location, because it seems that everything inside these people are all to be like this hay. We also had one moment where I think Mark was attacked by this unusual or I think someone was attacked in this movie that had this kind of skin over their face. It's kind of very unusual. But not only that, we had some characters that were to be fairly unique in this film because they were like deformed at some point with their faces and stuff like that. Like they didn't really have much to do with the story, but they were there in the background anyways. So with that said, hopefully that covers everything. I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.